Check 1 2, check 1 2, check. This is Derek Bros with the Conscious Resistance Network coming at you guys live for another episode of the Conscious Resistance Live, number 96. Holy crap, I've almost made it to episode 100 after 5 years. Go ahead, let me know if you can hear me okay. Give me some thumbs up, some comments below. You know the drill. Comment below, let people know where you're listening from. If you see anybody in your area, connect with them. Collaborate, see how we can work together to build a better world. And I'll give it just a moment to let some people start showing up. Tonight we got some good news to talk about. We got some bad news. We got the usual same old stuff. And hopefully some exciting things. Some of you guys out there hopefully getting involved in your community, getting involved in the real world, not just sitting here listening to me rant on YouTube or on the internet and just watching the world happen around you on the internet, but actually getting involved in some way, right? I hope. I'm guessing you guys can hear me okay because I haven't got anybody telling me I can't hear you. But I got a lot to talk about, as I said. I want to remind you guys first, though, before we get further, to visit theconsciousresistance.com, where you can find all of our latest content. You can find all of my videos, interviews, articles, essays. You can find content from Regan Keeley, as well as Danilo of Peaceful Anarchism is his podcast, his show, and Hannah, Houston Yoga Girl. We've got a few other people who contribute to us and help us make this happen, so we're really thankful for that, and everybody who supports our efforts. And yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me personally, besides the news that we're about to cover and the rest of the world, is that the Finders documentary came out. Yay, the Finders documentary came out. I'm really excited about that. I don't know about you guys, but I feel good about it. I'm thankful that, that you guys supported me. I mean, seriously, I put this documentary out because I found it to be an interesting topic. I focused and I keyed in on this issue, 6-7 months ago now, and I just really focused on it, just went straight into it, dove into it, and the more I got into it, the more I learned, and the more I realized it was worth exploring further. And these kind of documentaries, this kind of research, it doesn't, there's not like a whole lot of reward for it, I guess you could say, other than like you get to produce a documentary or something like that, right? Like I don't get a lot of return on this investment, so to speak, because it doesn't pay. I'm not getting paid to do this. And investigations like this is the problem with journalism. Investigations like this, they take months and sometimes even years, right, to dedicate yourself to a single topic to raise awareness on and to educate people about. And if you don't have a big institution behind you funding you, or a whole bunch of supporters who are, crowdfunding your operation, then really, it's difficult. It's difficult to make it work, right? Because those funds don't just come out of nowhere. Personally, I'm not willing to work all day to try to drive myself crazy working for somebody else and then just using that funds to try to do activism. To me, this has to be a full-time deal. So activism, journalism is all I do. It's all I commit myself to. And I'm very thankful to everybody. Thank you guys for the kind comments. If you haven't seen it, Randall, it is on our YouTube channel. You can see it. Just go ahead and click on the page. We released it yesterday, early morning, afternoon. And yeah, so far the response has been great. I'm hoping that we can get the Finders documentary up to several 100,000 views like we did with the Jeffrey Epstein documentary. Jeffrey Epstein's case is a little bit more, well-known in the mainstream, even though a lot of people don't even know about that. But even less people know about this whole case about the Finders, right? So I'm hoping that the conspiracy community out there, if you will, or even the true crime community, because I see my work with these documentaries as more like true crime. Like I'm actually trying to, I'm not just speculating and pushing, my ideas or guesses, but trying to show hard facts and documentation and examples of what I'm talking about, so that I can take some of these topics, like say, for example, the idea that intelligence networks involved with the U.S. government are involved in human trafficking or drug running or potentially even pedophilia and things of that sort. Take that concept and that conversation out of the realm of conspiracy and move it into the realm of maybe not polite dinner conversation, but at least to the area where people don't automatically dismiss you because you talk about some cult called the Finders. And I was very thankful. I saw a comment from somebody who was pretty much what I was looking for. They said, I think this is definitely the definitive work so far on the finders. And I definitely do believe that is true. I'm very proud of the work and the time that I put in. And you guys only saw part 1, which is 29 minutes long. I actually just finished writing part 2 a couple days ago, and then I went and recorded the narration for part 2 yesterday, and I edited together the clips with Robert Terrell, the finder that I interviewed, and I sent that over to Jeremy, my editor. So now he's working on that, and we will have that out the first or second week of February, and then it's going to have the world premiere, the full final edition with both 2 parts put together. And obviously we'll re-edit some pieces, and there might be some bonus footage in the final full thing. So altogether it's probably going to be about an hour. Part 1's 29 minutes. Part 2 is, my edits were about 30 minutes. Unless Jeremy cuts this down, then it'll end up being about an hour long. And I'm excited about that. I hope that you guys can handle that. You know, some people have told me in the past, if you're going to do videos, they got to be 7 minutes or shorter, right? Or 15 minutes at most, because people's attention spans just can't hang on. But I think documentaries are still popular, and people still enjoy that format of, you know, I like podcasts, and a podcast is a type of documentary. It's usually just an audio documentary, essentially. Sometimes, you know, there's a soundtrack and you can kind of get a feel for what you're supposed to be seeing visually. But these are long form, you know, journalistic projects doing documentaries like that. And I think there's still a place for that. Sometimes I call them mini documentaries if they're 15, 20 minutes, and that's cool too. But this story, I mean, I couldn't do anything less than an hour. And honestly, I'm leaving out different pieces of information that could have easily made this an hour and a half of a documentary, but I didn't think all the pieces were necessarily essential. You know, I had to step out of my investigative brain and be like, okay, some of the people watching this aren't going to care about every single one of those details, but they do want to know what actually took place. So that was kind of my challenge, is I had so much information. I've uncovered so much information. And yeah, so I'm excited about that. And I want to remind you guys again, bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. This week we've put out several new pieces of information. I will show you those right now. Let's check this out at theconsciousresistance.com. I put out just today, I was going to do a video. I haven't done this yet, so you guys might not have seen this, but on the website we have the Counter Economy Alternative. That is an essay written by Samuel Konkin back in the 80s about agorism and counter economics. If you're listening to this and wondering how you got here, or wondering what are the solutions to all the problems that we're going to talk about and the things that we cover on the kind of journalistic political side, the answer is to unplug from these systems, and not just to unplug and become apathetic, but to unplug and put your energy into something better. If you don't know what I'm talking about, start with this essay, The Counter Economy Alternative. Go over here to our search box and type in agorism or counter economics and begin your journey. We have Who Will Find the Finders Part 1 documentary we released this week. This story I wrote yesterday and put out a video called 7 Important Stories You Missed While the Media Obsessed Over MAGA Kid. We're going to go over that one in just a second. Danilo put out a new interview from Chris Harrigan, the documentary filmmaker behind a documentary called Anarch-Apocalypse. And this is the video I wanted to talk about for a second. I put out this video a couple days ago called How Do You Conduct Research, #1. And in this video, I mentioned how my friend Michael Reeves, who actually is from Connecticut. I think I said he was from New York, but he's from Connecticut. He reached out to me and had a list of questions like, how do you dig through information? How do you research? How do you know, just a lot of good stuff. And he's not the first person to ask me these topics and to try to get to know my process. So I put together this video, and it's about 30 minutes long, and it basically shows me investigating a claim. Is Jeffrey Epstein an agent of Mossad, or is Jeffrey Epstein an agent of Israel? And showing, you know, the live process of me researching that and the resources I use and the kind of tactics I use. And that's just one video. I'm going to do a couple more. I've got more resources, especially with the Finders documentary. I mean, if you watch the Finders documentary Part 1 and in Part 2, you're going to see more images. Some of these images haven't been seen in 30 years because they were buried in, you know, local newspapers in Virginia or Tennessee or DC or Maryland or Florida. The different places where the finders were located. So I was able to use different resources to go back and check archives. I went back and used, I mean, this is another thing, just one thing I'm going to put in the second video, is if you're an investigator or a journalist or even just a curious person out there who's trying to fact check information that you see, you know, it does help. And definitely this is more on the journalist side, but the more resources you have, the more accessibility you have. And what I mean by that is the more people you know, for example, people are a resource, knowledge is a resource. The more people you know, the more people you're connected to, it's easier to say, okay, for example, let me give you an example. I'm digging through the Washington Post archives, or I'm trying to find the Washington Post archives because I keep seeing a reference to an article about the finders where it's a copy of an article. So somebody copied all the text. And in this video, in the text, it says, Marion Petty, comma, photo. And Marion Petty was the founder of the Finders. So it's saying there's a photo of this guy. And I haven't been able to find any pictures of him anywhere. So I was like, this article exists somewhere. There's a photo in it. I have to find those archives. And that began my search of looking for the Washington Post archives. And I discovered that the only place you can find those archives, excuse me, guys, I've had a lot of allergies today. The only place you can find those archives is if you have a New York Public Library card, a DC Public Library card, or a Maryland Public Library card. You can get online and access the Washington Post archives. I found some websites that have the Washington Post archives, but it's usually only like 1900 up to like 1920 or 1940. Nobody has the modern archives unless you have access to those libraries. So I hit up some of my friends in DC and Maryland and in those areas, and I was able to get in touch with one of them and get his library card, log into his library account, and then voila, got access to the Washington Post archives and searched Finders, searched Marion Petty, and found everything I could. I found pictures of Marion Petty. I found pictures of the kids, which you see in the documentary. I found pictures of the men who were arrested, and I have even more pictures that we're going to put in part 2 that, again, these pictures haven't been seen in 30 years. They're just buried and kind of lost to history. Newspapers.com, like there's different websites different like this where you can find resources to get access to these types of documents. So look for more videos on that. And I don't know, did you guys enjoy that? Were you curious about those kinds of things? I don't know if that video went on a little bit long when I was talking about my process, how I research. I do have more claims. For example, the next ones I'm going to research are going to be, is 5G banned in Israel? Or, because people say, oh, it's, the Israelis behind it. The Israeli company built the technology, and so they've banned it. I haven't taken the time to look into it. Maybe it's just going to take me one quick link to look that up. But those are the kinds of things people say over and over. Or whenever 5G went live over in Denmark, I think, or in somewhere in Europe, all these birds were found dead. And I briefly looked into it, and the only references I found were on kind of health blogs and things like that. I didn't find any concrete evidence. I keep finding an article that's supposedly translated, things like that. So my point is, I'm going to dig into some more of these claims. So if you see things like this, if you hear claims like, oh, I always hear people saying X, Y, and Z, email me those questions or those concerns at derek@theconsciousresistance.com, and I'll make videos on that, and I'll show you guys. We'll go through them together, and we'll see what we can find. Does this young man talk about Israel's dominance of the high-tech industry? Well, like I just said, people talk about 5G and Israel being involved in that. Israel has influence all over the place, for sure. I'm more worried about Israeli influence than I am Russian influence or necessarily Chinese influence. But all these countries, all these tyrants, all these statists want to control you at the end of the day. So that's what's important to realize, right? They don't give a damn about you. The only people that are going to take care of us are us, the people. I'm going to go ahead and post that link to you guys. How do you do research, number 1, in the chat. Harmful or not, 5G is going to be used to run all the RFID chip transactions. I mean, that's just, yeah, absolutely. The RFID chips, I mean, you may be talking about implanting them in people, and that's probably coming. But as far as RFID chips just tagging all kinds of items that people are going to be purchasing, yeah, but that's definitely what's going to be taking place, because the Internet of Things, which is what 5G is going to bring on, is going to have sensors and all kinds of interconnected devices. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I do have 5G news that I want to talk about, but I actually have a sticky note, and this sticky note is the order I'm supposed to talk in. So I'm going to stick to my little sticky note here, and we're going to show you where you can make sure to get all of my work. If you guys haven't heard, I do have a text list that I run, and it is through a website called remind.com. And all you do is I'm going to post the link in the chat. All you do is you just sign up on this link, and when you get it, when you sign up on this link, I don't get your phone number. The company, Remind, they don't mess with you. It's supposed to be a chat thing for teachers and students. Just imagine that this is your class. I'm a journalist and I teach a class. It's called The Conscious Resistance. If you'd like to be a student of that class, sign up in that link right there, remind.com/join/dbjourno. And then every time I put out a new video, every time I put out a new article, you will get a text message that says new video, new article, with a link to that. This way you don't have to be dependent on YouTube notifying you. I know a lot of you click the bell and click the notifications and you still don't get them. People tell me that all the time. So forget relying on Google, forget relying on Facebook or any of these social media platforms. Just sign up through the remind.com. And yeah, I know we're relying on remind.com to deliver the message, but you get my point. It's a helpful and effective tool, and it's one of the ideas that many of us have thought of how we can connect with you guys without using social media. All right, I think it's time to get into this first story. We're gonna have to dive in, guys. I've been avoiding it. I avoided it for as long as I could, but I could not avoid it anymore because, well, it got so loud that I had to talk about the MAGA kid, and I had to talk about the indigenous man Nathan Smith, who they crashed into each other at the DC rallies, the March for Life and the Indigenous Peoples Day March last weekend. And of course, it just became what do they call it? The water cooler topic is what they used to say. I don't know what they say now. Just is the talk of the week, right? The trending topic on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else, right? Be distracted by this. Talk about this kid. Is this kid smirk racist? Was this guy crashing into them? Why are the black Hebrews, Israelites chanting at them? Just all this, obsess over it. And even in the alternative media, obsess over it. And yes, it's important to point out when the fake news is fake news and call them out. But also, that's all they want us to do is to talk about that. So I've talked about it enough, and instead we're going to focus on 7 important stories that you might have missed while the media obsessed over MAGA kid. And of course, I already did a video earlier this week talking about this very thing, so I'm not going to rehash too much of this. There's a couple of them I think are worth mentioning here on our live show in case you guys haven't seen it throughout the week. One of the main important ones, well, I'll hold off on that. One that I think is important is a court ruled ag-gag laws, which criminalize undercover reporting. The court said that this violates the First Amendment. So let's imagine that you have heard rumors that the factory farm at the end of town is abusing or just mistreating cows or chickens or what have you, right? And there's just some really depraved things going on. Imagine that. And you, as an undercover journalist or activist, you go get hired and try to go in there and to infiltrate essentially and to film them and show what's taking place behind closed doors. That was criminalized recently in a number of states in what are called ag-gag laws, where it basically attacks the freedom of speech and says that you can't go in there and get hired under false pretenses. And I'm sure some from the business side would say, yeah, well, if I'm going to hire somebody, I think it should be illegal for them to lie to me about I'm just coming in here to get hired to expose you. Yeah, I guess I could see that argument, but that at the end of the day, if somebody's in there exposing corruption, it's going to be kind of difficult to argue in defense of the person, that's doing the crimes, right? And say, oh, well, I'm sorry, you didn't have proper warning that people were going to expose you for your horrible, actions. I'm not going to give you much sympathy. So I think that's a win. That's a win for the free speech. That's a win for the people. It's a win for the animals, and hopefully more and more injustices behind closed doors, not just as it relates to factory farms and to animals and agriculture, but this is specifically about that. But in general, I hope more and more people keep getting exposed for what they talk about behind closed doors and who they really are behind closed doors. We also talked about one brief thing. This is one I want to mention. The brazen detention of Marze Hashemi, who was an American woman, an African-American woman born in New Orleans, later converted to Islam, became a journalist, moved to Iran, and was working for Press TV, but she still came back and forth to the United States. She was an expat who went to Iran. She came back here to the U.S. to visit a family member. I think it was for a wedding. And then they grabbed her and they held her as a political prisoner for at least more than a week. She was finally released yesterday. And she's now telling her story, and her family's saying that, they're not going to just let people forget about what happened to her. I mean, and look, you don't have to agree with Islam. You don't have to agree with Press TV. You don't have to agree with Iran. But if you don't think it's fucked up that this woman flew to the United States and she's born in the United States. So, for those of you who be like, well, she's not a citizen, right? Born in the United States and becomes a journalist for a country the U.S. doesn't like, on a station the U.S. doesn't like, and practices a religion that a lot of people in the U.S. don't like, and comes home to the U.S. and is just kidnapped, is just ripped off the streets and put in chains. I mean, this is America. I've said it already. This is definitely America. This is, the America they want you to pay attention to is the divisive America, instead of, hey, how about we focus on the issues that might unite us? Like, they just snatched one of our own off the streets. And what I mean by one of our own, I mean like a fellow human being, if you want to say, if you want to break it down nationalistically, a fellow American. But at the end of the day, just a human being, a person who deserves the right to not be infringed upon and not be aggressed upon, and at the very least, if is accused of a crime, deserves trial by a jury of her peers. All that bullshit they feed us that they tell us still exists in the United States. All that, you know what I mean? Those things used to be important. Maybe they should be important again. So, a few other ones. Yellow Vest movement has officially gone global. I'm going to do a video pretty soon. I did one video talking about France a couple weeks ago. I might try to squeeze in another one in the next week because, guys, I won't be here next Friday. I'm heading out next Friday. I'll be flying to Mexico, where I'll be gone to Acapulco for a couple weeks, and then I'm going to Costa Rica to speak at Envision Festival. I'll be back in early March. But I'm thinking maybe I'll do a live show next Thursday if you guys are interested. If you want me to do a live show, make a comment, and I will do that on Thursday night instead of Friday since I'm flying early Friday. But I'm thinking about doing a video on the yellow vest and maybe kind of a deeper look, because I see this movement going global. That's what people are being told right now. That's what we're seeing. And a lot of people see that this in their minds, they're seeing this is a nationalistic or individualistic push against globalization and globalism and the bad guys and the deep state and things like that, right? But I don't know, man. We got to be careful. You know, it feels weird to me, like, to just put on a vest because other people are putting on a vest. I'm not the kind of guy to just throw on a shirt because everybody's throwing on a shirt, or, you know, flash a hand sign because everybody's flashing a hand sign, or what have you. You know what I mean? I got to know why I'm doing something. So if we're all flashing a hand sign as part of, you know, a group protest or something, I might say, hey guys, where'd that come from? Did anybody know why we're doing it or what it's about? And when I find in those situations that the people who are doing the things have no idea why they're doing them, it definitely makes me a little suspicious or cautious. And so let's use a little bit of prudence when looking at the situation, the Yellow Vest movement, and, you know, be thankful and push for legitimate uprisings from the ground up. And hopefully people who are not just focused about uprising and expressing your anger and throwing things in the street and fighting the cops, because it might come to that in the United States at some point. We might have to fight for our freedom and against the authority figures, but also not just fighting and defending ourselves, because if you're on the defense, you can never be on the offense. You can never build, right? So if they have you constantly reacting and defending yourself, then you're actually losing. You know what I mean? So we want to be able to build. We want to be able to create and be forward thinking, not just reactionary. That's the difference between holistic activists, holistic anarchists, holistic agorists, is that we don't just focus on, okay, this is the problem I see in the world, I'm going to respond and react and just release that feeling that I need to express myself in different ways, right? Which is important. But you don't only do that. You will also say, okay, well, now I need to stop. I need to breathe. I need to think about this critically. This is the situation. These are the players involved. This is how it's affecting me. How can I approach the situation with a strong heart and a revolutionary mind, and not fall into this trap of division and not fall into all the same divide and conquer shit that we've seen throughout history, and instead focus on building, on positive. Don't be just against something, but be for something, right? So I'm personally against 5G, or I have a lot of questions about 5G, but also I could say I'm for digital freedom. I'm for digital privacy. I'm for health. These are the ways that it's all about the way that we frame our arguments, and also about the state of mind and our own perceptions, right? So if we're constantly against things and we're constantly fighting against something, and there definitely are things that need to be fought against and challenged. But if that's the only mode of action we have, if we don't have an offensive method of building, of creating and growing, then we're stuck. We're not going to grow, So yeah, what do you guys think about that? Is it important to grow? Is it important? Or should we just focus on the problems all day? Just bitch and complain. That's always fun, right? That's what I like to do. I just like to complain all day. I don't really take action. It's not very appealing to me. It takes effort. I have to get off my butt. I have to get out of my house. I have to actually change myself. I actually have to look at myself in the mirror and say, am I the person I thought I would be at this point in my life, or have I failed myself? Where's that little kid inside of me, the inner child? What did that inner child want at a young age? What was I looking for out of this life? Am I living those things? Am I anywhere near that vision, or am I so far from it that I can't even remember what it's like to be a kid, how to be connected to the imagination and the creative spirit? Because that's what a big part of the inner child is. The inner child, which this system wants to disconnect us from, is our key. It's our connection to our creativity and to our imagination, as well as to our healing. Because each of us, I don't care who you are, we all have different trauma, different doubts, fears, and insecurities that we've picked up on our way and in our experience. And a lot of times those things happen in our formative years when you are a child. Sometimes we can block those things out. Sometimes we are able to work through them, because we're all different. We all handle things different, right? Some of us are more sensitive than others, you could say. Other times people take my route, and this was a favorite of pastime of mine, and you just take as many drugs as possible and pretend like that makes you feel better, and just ignore things as long as you can. But of course, eventually that catches up to you, right? So we have a lot of ways, unhealthy ways, to deal with the trauma and to keep ourselves disconnected from that healing that comes with being connected to your inner child. So we have to decide as free, powerful, beautiful people, do we want to be adults who are clear thinking and critical thinkers who are in the process of healing and working on our own trauma? Or do we want to be out there like children in giant bodies? Because that's what's really going on. Even this idea that's come about in the last decade or so of man-child, right? This idea that there's like a lot of men and that are just, you know, they're adults, right? They're like 30s, 40s and older, but mentally, emotionally, they're immature. They're still like children, right? And obviously this works for men, women, anybody living can fall into this category, right? Well, that idea even is I think a part of the problem, right? That it's acceptable or that it's okay or just, yeah, like we're just a bunch of kids in big adult bodies. We haven't figured out any of our own shit. We're still dealing with the same stuff. We're still, you know, dealing with the same mommy and daddy issues or the same insecurities and the same flaws. We actually aren't working on ourselves. You know what I mean? And I want to make it clear because I know some of you are long-term supporters here and you've heard me say this, but everything that I say in these rambles, rants, and these stories I cover is something I'm saying to myself as much as I'm saying to you. I never come to you guys with anything as if like, listen to me, I'm holier than thou, I got this shit figured out. Because as you guys know, I'm still working on my things. I'm still trying to heal. I'm you know, I produce documentaries and that's cool and that's awesome, but I've still got my own trauma and my own things to heal from and to work on. And it's a process, right? I can expose information and help people become aware about what's going on in the world. I can go question the mayor on 5G. I can do some radio shows, and then I can spend some time at home, like in my own head and going on walks or working out at the gym. You know, lately I've been getting back into going to the gym and running was one of my most meditative experiences when I was in prison. That was honestly the first time I got locked up. One of the things that saved me is just being able to run on the track like every day. And so that's been really meditative for me recently, just getting back into that flow of just in my head and allowing myself that time to process my thoughts and also, you know, getting healthier and just sweating and releasing. Like it's a physical and emotional thing, right? I'm releasing sweat, I'm releasing toxins from my body, and my you know, adrenaline's flowing, my blood's flowing, I'm getting that oxytocin release, like I get the runner's high, right? All that stuff is going on, as well as in my mind, I'm able to process my thoughts about what I went through that day. And if there's something I need to address, like, oh, you know, I need to have that conversation with so-and-so because that feels unresolved, what have you, right? So give yourself those times, even if you're not going to run on a treadmill or whatever, give yourself 5 minutes every day. At the end of the day, beginning of the day, in the middle of your lunch, whenever you can find it, give yourself 5 minutes. Start there, 5 to 10 minutes a day, just to sit in your favorite chair. This is not my favorite chair. It's very wobbly and it sucks, but it's a chair that I sit in often. So sit in your chair that you sit in often and just breathe, you know, just freaking breathe. Take time to breathe. I don't know how often you breathe. Sometimes we forget to breathe. I forget to breathe. I almost passed out at the gym recently. So it's important to remember to breathe and to take that time to yourself and then just think about, what did I do the moment I woke up? Oh, I woke up in a rush because I didn't get much sleep last night and I was in a hurry to go to work and I didn't even get to have my coffee. You start going through your thoughts and you start learning, well, maybe if I would have gone to bed earlier, or maybe I could have got up earlier. You start thinking about how to improve, or at least this is a mindset you can have, right? You can choose. It's all about your choice, your perception. You can also choose to wake up like, fuck, I woke up again late. I got to go to work. I'm so miserable. I hate these people I have to talk to. I hate these people on the road. I hate these people that are yelling at me. I hate these politicians. Hate. Let me just get home and watch YouTube and that'll make me feel better. Let me just, that's just like another dose of oxytocin. Just like shoot yourself full of that. You're still ignoring your problems. You're still not processing your emotions. So give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I promise you it will have profound effects. If you're never going to research agorism, if you're never going to research counter economics, if you're not going to watch my documentaries, if you're not going to read my essays, read my books, read my articles, that's fine. I would be much happier if all you did was just take 5 to 10 minutes with yourself every single day. And if 20,000 plus subscribers did that, that would probably be worth more than all of you watching all my videos that I've ever made. And because yes, I have some interesting things to share, but at the end of the day, that would have probably the larger impact on the collective consciousness if we all start just tuning in a little bit, right? All that good stuff. All right, let me see. Let me catch up on some of these comments here. My chair is not comfy. I just never leave it because I'm always working. That's why. It's like literally, like if I try to move, I'm falling to this side, It's all wonky, but I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful because if I didn't have a chair, then I'd be on the floor, right? There's something to be thankful for. Tell us about your shamanism practices and experiences. We could do that. I have some news to cover, but honestly, I want to do what you guys think is more important. Like, do you want me to talk about shamanism? You want me to talk about some other things? The stories I wanted to cover, I have some 5G news. I've got some news about new investigations into the assassinations of JFK and MLK. I've got some surveillance news. I've got a really big one I haven't seen anybody cover about the opioid crisis and the FDA. But we can just talk if you guys just want to chat. I can just read some of these comments. Sometimes having wisdom and understanding is tough, right? Tell us about your shamanism experiences. I'm down for that. I believe in changing the world by changing yourself, spreading love, planting seeds everywhere I go, and releasing stuff that doesn't serve me. Absolutely, that's perfect. Your inner child, that's where the magic is. Exactly. I'm not ignoring things, but I'm drinking drinks. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a nice drink. I have a tea right here. So let's have a drink. Heal yourself, heal the world. I'm a kid in a man's body, emotional work in progress. Though. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I am a kid still, but I'm trying to be a kid in like the good ways and like, the creative, like not the like, oh, I'm going to act like a 7-year-old when somebody doesn't do something I like and just go pout because that's what I've been doing my whole life, right? That's one thing to remember is when you start to get reconnected to your inner child, you're going to realize like, maybe I've been handling things the same way. For example, I had a friend who told me in her family, the way they dealt with things was just screaming and, running out of the room and slamming doors on each other. That's like the family. Or in public and around other people, put on a smile, pretend you're okay. Everything's good, right? So it was either really fake or really like extreme and angry. And so these are the habits that she carried into her adulthood and continued to practice until she became aware of it and started to say, all right, I don't want to keep reacting that same way. Just have to be aware of your thoughts and feelings, self-accountability, self-care, awareness. Live consciously. Love is the answer, especially learn to forgive yourself. Absolutely. Mindfulness is beautiful. In the silence, the wisdom comes. You're funny. It's good to have an uncomfy chair. All right, talk about shamanism. Hey, I can share something with you guys if you are interested, and I'll answer those last couple questions. I actually just finished working on my speech for Anarchapulco and for Envision Festival. Have you guys ever heard of Envision Festival in Costa Rica? It's really awesome. I will answer all those questions. It's cool. We got a lot of questions about spirituality. That's awesome. I'm down to answer those. But this is a new speech that I've started to put together and that Miriam has helped me make these awesome graphics. Maybe I can pull some of them up and show you guys what they look like so you can check it out first-hand look here on the live show for you guys because you're so awesome and you hang out with me on a Friday night while you're sipping on your drinks and smoking on your smokes and all that good stuff. This talk is called The Sevenfold Path of the Holistic Anarchist or of the Conscious Resistance. And I'm going to tell you guys all about that in just a moment. And as you can imagine, there's 7 steps to it. And I'm going to tell you all about that. But first, I will go ahead and answer your questions so that we can get caught up. Stacy, yes, I did get the VPN info you sent me. Thank you very much for that. And I did check to see if I'm leaking, and I got it taken care of. Thank you guys. So I'm going to do a video on that because I know that internet security is something that is new to a lot of us. But if you're not using a VPN at the least, a virtual private network, then definitely check that out. Personally, I use Nord, N-O-R-D VPN. I'm not getting paid for that. Maybe I should be getting paid if I'm going to say that, but I'm not. I'm just telling you the one I use. So if you want to check that out, check that out. So let's get into some of these questions. Talk about shamanism. I can share you guys my experience in what I call shamanism, right? I can even kind of tell you how my views have elaborated on the idea of shamanism. What native traditions and ceremonies have you done and or still practice? I remember you saying you were part native. I am part native. And this is an interesting topic for me. I actually wrote an essay a while back about this, like my heritage or my upbringing, because let me just tell you this. I grew up telling people that I was half Mexican and part Czechoslovakian and part something else. I didn't even know what else, right? And that's just what I told everybody my whole life because that's what I knew. And then the older I've gotten, the kind of more aware I've become of things like colonization and colonialism, I started to not even really feel like I want to call myself half Mexican, right? Because I wasn't born in Mexico. My family does go back, eventually back to Mexico, but for a few generations at least, my family's been in Texas since before it was Texas, since before it was owned by the United States or Spain. And there are natives here. Some of them are known as Taino Indians, Taino natives. I don't know if I'm Taino, but I do know my family has been in Texas for a long, long time on my mother's side, which is the Mexican side. And then on my father's side, my birth father's side, that's where I have Czechoslovakian, specifically Bohemian, coming from a village in Bohemia called Moravia. That's part of my family I know the most about, going back to like the 16th century, but I don't know many of them. I just know the history. And also on my father's side, through my grandmother, that's where the native, I'm 34, 35, something like that percentage, whatever that matters, native. And I believe it's Seminole. So part Seminole, native to Texas, that I used to call Mexican, and Czechoslovakian, and that's my heritage. And I didn't grow up on a reservation. I didn't grow up really with any Hispanic Mexican traditions. You know, I wasn't taught to speak Spanish. So I've been very disconnected from my roots and the things that are now important to me as I'm getting older, and as I've started to research my spirituality and to read a lot of these different books about shamanism and spirituality and native traditions, as well as learning firsthand. I started to delve, besides just reading, I started to get firsthand experience with shamanism and with native traditions in 2012. Here in Houston, I was able to participate in an ayahuasca kind of ceremony. I wouldn't call it a retreat, but an ayahuasca ceremony for a small group of people. And that was a big shift for me. We can talk about that one day. And then in the past 4 years or so, I was introduced to the Choctaw up here in Oklahoma. So I'm in Texas. They're north of Texas a little bit. And the Choctaw, of course, are some of the tribes who went on the Trail of Tears, who were forced to move across the United States and to relocate to Oklahoma. And I've met and worked with and partnered with and been able to participate in Sundance and a number of different ceremonies on some Choctaw land, specifically Chief Gray Eagle, Daryl Brown, who has become a mentor to me over the past few years, and I try to go as often as I can. I didn't get to go to make Sundance this past summer because the tour happened and the schedule just didn't work out, unfortunately. But this year I'm definitely going to go back to Sundance. So I've done sweat lodges there, and then when I went to Standing Rock, I was able to participate in some Lakota sweat lodges and to connect with some other Native members and brothers and sisters and things of that sort. So those have been my direct experiences, and just hanging with the community and being a part of that. And then, like I said, learning my roots and trying to understand where I come from more and understand that and what it means to me. Because out of all the sides of my family, out of all the sides of my family, I'm the only one that seems to be interested in these kinds of things. Like most of my family, for lack of a better term, lives like an American white kind of lifestyle. Like my mom, like I said, she didn't teach us to speak Spanish. I didn't grow up doing anything that you would consider traditionally Hispanic or Mexican or anything like that. Like I said, I didn't grow up on a reservation, so I don't know those struggles. And nobody in my family really seems to be interested in learning these things. And so I have my nieces and nephews are being raised, and I try to make sure to tell them hey, this is where you come from. Your parents might not be telling you about this, but this is in your blood, and because it's important to me and it's a part of me. And so I want to keep that alive. And I want to know even more, though, specifically about traditions of the Seminole and get connected to the Seminole, because as somebody who's trying to get close to my roots, I don't just want to hey, let's just find the closest native ceremony and now I'm a real Indian kind of thing, right? No, I have all the respect in the world for these communities and for what's in my blood, and I also acknowledge that I didn't come from the same place. So but I want authentic, as close as possible. I want to get as authentic and close to my roots as possible. So I know that I'm part Seminole, and I'm still trying to confirm that through the Dawes rolls and some of the records that do exist, and see if I can find any names of other family members and things like that. I don't care about being accepted by the Seminole tribe or getting federal money or any of that crap. It's a spiritual thing for me. It's because I want to be connected to where I come from. And I will say this, I've done a number of really deep meditations over the years, group meditations involving, drumming, shamanic drumming meditations. Some of you know that I'm very connected to wolves and that I like to howl. I've got a wolf tattoo here, and I volunteered at a wolf sanctuary, and I've got a whole interesting story about wolves and how they've spoke to me over a number of years and just the paths that led me on. But I've had some really deep drumming experiences where I went into, a deep meditative state, and where this wolf walked with me, and where I could see, I saw this really dark path, and the wolf was right here next to me, and I was assigned a raccoon skin for this meditation, and so I was supposed to go with the spirit of the raccoon, and the wolf that I'm always with was kind of right there. And this is all in my mind, of course. We're in a deep meditation, and it's a guided meditation, and after a certain point, my friend who was leading it is like, all right, now you guys are on your own. You just start walking, and I'll bring you back in a little bit. And the drums are just getting intense. It's called a state of entrancement, where whether you're talking about breathing or mantras or counting your breaths or the drumming. It's the repetition that puts that brain in that state of entrancement where you can have these deep, deep insights. And so I saw this super dark path, and the wolf told me it was okay, and the raccoon told me it was okay. And all I know is I felt fear looking in this direction. And I just started running as fast as I can, and I just hauling ass down this path. And as I was going through it, it was like I was going through memories, painful memories. And I saw my life in chapters of 7. And so 0 through 7 years old, then 14 years old, then 21 years old, and 28 at the time. And now I'm 34. I'll be turning 35 next year. And so I don't know if everybody's life works in chapters of 7, but that's what I saw. And I saw these memories at those key points: 7 years old, 14 years old, 21. I got arrested the week before I turned 21, and I went to prison for my crystal meth addiction. All these different changes. About 28 was right when I've been waking up, but it's been this phase of this activist journalist phase, right? When I was 7 years old, I relived this memory of being in my baseball uniform and waiting in my driveway in my garage for my father to show up. One of the times he got out of prison for his drug addiction, and I was just sitting there waiting, and I saw this memory, like my mom was coming into the house like, hey, we got to leave. And I was just sitting there waiting for him. And I don't know if I suppressed this or ignored this, but I basically, I relived it, and I was able to feel that kind of sadness as a 7-year-old waiting for my father, who didn't show up because he was already back in prison, and then just living through these memories. So my point is, I went into some super deep meditations at different points, and have definitely done some strong modalities, which, by the way, I actually write a lot about this in my first book, Reflections on Anarchy for Spirituality, which you can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/books. And I write about, positive affirmations and some of the spiritual stuff in the second book. But my point was, I've done different modalities, body electronics, sweat lodges, and deep meditations, and drumming meditations, and acid, and ayahuasca, and mushrooms, and these different things in pursuit of self-healing and self-knowledge. And they are powerful tools, and they can definitely help. But we definitely need to know that the true answers are within ourselves, right? And I think that's what I've realized over these years. Is I used to take acid all the time. I used to sell acid a lot of times. I made a lot of money selling acid, and I saw myself even in that way as a shaman, sharing this tool with people, right? But I realized over time, you don't need them so much anymore. You basically realize that the answers are within us, and I believe that the answers are all the answers we're looking are already within our hearts and within our communities, and it's important for us to connect to that. That's why, if you're wondering why it's called the conscious resistance, back to my speech for Anarchapulco and Envision. If you haven't heard my spiel, I've got this one kind of memorized, so here, I'll give it to you. The conscious resistance is the moment, the awareness, the understanding, the realization that the struggle for a more free, ethical, and just world will not come from confronting physical institutions of power alone. It has to come from confronting our own internal tyrants, our doubts, fears, and insecurities, as well as the physical manifestations of power in the corporations and the state. You have to have both of those. That is what I call the conscious resistance. When I started to get involved in activism and I started to go down these spiritual paths, I realized that I had my spiritual community and the conscious community, and I had my protest activist friends going to the Federal Reserve, cop watching, things like that. And when I would be with my activist friends, I'd say, hey guys, there's a meditation going on. You want to go experience that? Or I'd say something trippy like, hey, maybe we're all God, and maybe we're just the reflections of each other or something. And they'd just laugh at me or call me a crazy hippie or say, are you high? What are you talking about? We're here to protest. So I was like, okay, I won't talk about that. Then I'd go to my meditation circles and I'd say, guys, have you seen the growing police state? Have you heard about the Federal Reserve and this economic theft and things like that? And they would just tell me to stop talking about it. You're going to create it. Don't manifest it. Don't bring about the bad things. And so for the first several years, I lived these two different lives, and I didn't integrate those things. And it wasn't until the summer of 2013 when the phrase the conscious resistance came to me, and I realized that there is no separateness, that this is one message. This is one single thing. The internal, emotional, spiritual struggle, battle, and the physical 3D external world, right? Those are two components that are equally important. And that is what I call the conscious resistance, or more recently, I call holistic activism, holistic anarchism. So the speech is going to focus on that. And I actually do have one of the pictures here. I'll show you guys that Miriam created these because she's an awesome artist and she does a lot of cool work. She helps me out because I'm not very good at this type of creative stuff. So it's called The Sevenfold Path of the Conscious Resistance of the Holistic Anarchist. And I'm going to show you guys just the title slide and kind of the first one. Let me see if I can get this set up. All right. Okay, cool. So the 7-step path of the conscious resistance, or as I said, of holistic anarchism. And it's got a cool little graphic there. And then so you see this first slide here. Basically, we're going to use the meditating icon, and we're going to use kind of like the chakras going up. And each side, so everything on this right side will represent, which is the meditator's left, which will represent the emotional, spiritual kind of empowerment stuff. So we're starting with mindfulness. And then on the right side, the other side, there's going to be a corresponding, kind of emotion or thought. Let me see if I can just show you guys. I'll show you the final one. So whenever I'm presenting it, I'm going to say, okay, down on your, you can use the root chakras as an example if you want. You don't have to use that kind of language, but starting in your bottom most basic place, you have mindfulness, right? You need to become mindful of your actions and of the world around you and what you're working on and who you are as an individual and all these important things, right? So you're going to have, for each step, there's going to be an emotional component, and then there's also going to be a physical component. There's the final thing you can see right there. So mindfulness down here, and then we go to foundation, setting your foundation in the physical world, and then reflection on the spiritual, and it goes back and forth: reflection, education, forgiveness, action, acceptance, localize, healing, harmonize, empowerment, community, actualization, and liberation. I'll be breaking down every single one of these at Anarchapulco and at Envision Festival. If you've never heard of either one of those, check them out. If you've got money to burn right now and you want to go to Mexico or Costa Rica, there are still tickets available. And if not, I videotape all my talks and I put them on the website and the YouTube channel, so you guys will see them pretty soon. And if you want to sign up on patreon.com, you guys can see this before anybody else. And speaking of that, I'm going to be adding the Finders Part 2, the script and the audio, to Patreon in the next couple days, so you can see that before anybody else, before it comes out. And if you want to hear my talk, I'll go more in depth on that on Patreon as well. So yeah, you can kind of get an image there of what I'm going for. I hope you guys kind of understand what I'm saying. So, mindfulness, I'll talk about what that means. I'll talk about what it means for self-reflection and forgiveness. And there's a reason they're in this order too. And just kind of a side note, I'm probably going to make this joke on stage so you guys can hear it first. I always find it funny that things like somebody would see this, right, the chakras, and say like, oh God, this is some hippie spiritual thing, and maybe this is like kind of like a right brain person, like I'm gonna walk out on this, I can't watch this chakras BS, energy vortex centers or whatever, and they in their mind they kind of just throw this and lump this in with like, oh, it's some new age hippie stuff, right? And I've heard people say the same thing about meditating, and when you really get down to it, if you understand what the chakras are and where they come from, like this is an ancient Indian system, and meditation has been around probably since human beings have been around, and we've gone to nature to just sit and reflect and find that quiet space, and even in an organized fashion for at least thousands of years. So it's just funny to me when people are like, oh, it's new age or it's hippie or something. It's like the hippies, as far as I know, that just didn't start till the 60s. So how can this be anything? I don't know. I don't consider myself a hippie. I don't like wearing those labels, but I get labeled that, and it's funny to me. I'm like, well, and they label it in like a bad way. That's like, so caring about nature, or caring about the planet, or self-healing, or elevating yourself and empowering yourself, that's just silly hippie stuff. Oh my God, you silly hippies, you're so naive. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? I hope you're excited to see that. And oh, I realized my picture was blocking half of the image. Let me just show you the full image, and you can check that out one more time. But yeah, what do you think about that? I'll make sure you can see the whole thing. Mindfulness, reflection, forgiveness, acceptance, healing, empowerment, actualization, liberation, community, harmonize, localize, action, education, foundation. And this phrase, these words actually come from my third book, Manifesto of the Free Humans, where I basically say that we need to take an honest self-assessment, or a holistic self-assessment, which is my fourth book. Like, we need to do that. We need to understand ourselves, our doubts, fears, our insecurities, what our goals are, what our purpose is, and who we are as an individual. And then we take this 7-fold path towards liberation. And that's mindfulness, reflection, forgiveness of self and of others, acceptance of self and others, healing, empowerment, and actualization. And again, I will break down and define all those terms at the event. So I hope you guys will check that out and look out for that coming up. Well, we've been talking for about 48 minutes. I'm down to answer some more questions. Let me go through. I saw somebody asking about DMT. Yes, I have quite a bit of experience with DMT. I experimented with it for a couple of years before I ever had my breakthrough experience. But yeah, definitely, there's a lot to learn from DMT as well. But all these tools, like I said, all these tools are tools. They're not to be relied upon, because that's the danger. And I've definitely had my experience where what I say, and you can take this how you will, the spirit of LSD kicked me in the nuts and said, hey, you're playing around too much. You're not respecting me. You're not respecting this medicine for what it can be, right? So anyways, it's really interesting. I don't know who Matthew Blackman is, but he's got a lot of interesting stuff to say. Hallucinations are great, but not real. I don't know who said they were real, but it's funny to me, and this is again something we write about in the first book, that for those who are stuck in the right brain strictly living, what I believe, what John Vibes and I write about, is what we call explorative agnosticism. And agnosticism means, one does not know. You don't know. Typically, it's about God. I don't know if there's a God or if there's not a God. But we apply it to reality itself, and we add the word explorative to say that we should be open to the possibilities, because at the end of the day, none of us know what the heck is going on. This could be a simulation. We could be God's dream. It could be a flat, whatever. I'm just saying, like, none of us really know. And when you actually try DMT and try these different things, yes, they are hallucinations, but they also are very insightful. And there's things I've gained from that realm that stay with me, like some of the experiences and some of the meditations and some of the things I went to, both under the influence of various plant medicines and just under the influence of my own mind and meditation. So it's interesting when people kind of get worried, or they just try to dismiss it like, oh, it's just a hallucination. That's cool. That's true from your perspective and your reality, but that doesn't mean that there's knowledge that I can't gain. Ryan from The Last American Vagabond gave you a nice shout out the other day. Cool. Shout out to Ryan. He's a good dude. I haven't been on there in a while. I did that stuff 30 years ago. Enjoy your trip. Hope you come back. It ain't out there. It's in here. Dude, I'm not still tripping. I'm talking to you about, like, this is all stuff years ago. Really, I stopped tripping a long time ago. I keep my medicines close to me, so in case I get a rainy day and I feel like going down that. But my days of taking 20 hits of acid and selling vials and doing all that stuff those are over. Keep on the red road. That's where I'm staying. Lakota sweats are no joke. I love your honesty, and I can relate to your story and spiritual work. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Close your eyes. Let your mind go. Breathe. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to ask some questions, and if not, I'll get into the last couple news stories. If you want to hear some more news, there's just a couple items that I think are important that I want to make sure to take some time. And I appreciate you guys humoring me and asking questions. I do want this to be interactive. I don't want to just be talking to like the wall. Like I do read the comments. If you haven't noticed on the YouTube channel, I pay attention. I read the comments. I respond to you. Sometimes I respond to the crazy trolls as well, and things like that. I would love if you did a documentary talking about the Illuminati symbolism in music industry and movies. I think a lot of them are trapped in it. I think that's probably true. There is some mind control elements going on. For those who are interested in that topic and symbolism, if you haven't heard of vigilantcitizen.com, check that out. It is a Christian kind of website, so if you're not comfortable with that, just be aware, but he does some really good spot-on work as far as symbolism. I don't always agree with him on his analysis, but I do think that the symbols are, there's too much of this one-eye stuff going on to be a coincidence. And once you start really looking and you see it all over the world, it's putting certain symbols into the mind of the youth and making it a very a trendy thing, a subtle thing, where you see little kids who are dancing to music and they start kind of flashing like hand signs, which back in the day used to be like gang signs. People would throw up gang signs in their videos or whatever. Now it's just people doing funny stuff, dancing, doing whatever. And you see a kid doing it, they're like, why are you doing that? And they don't know. They just saw it on TV, right? So it's very easy to see how this stuff can get into the minds of the youth. Do you believe in good and or bad aliens or advanced beings? Wow, that's a whole nother topic here, Homeless American. But I did do a video on aliens and Bob Lazar and UFOs a few weeks back, and I'd refer you to that if you want to check it out, because it's just a big topic to get in right now. I've been into UFOs since I was a kid, and I'm still not sure what exactly they are, but I think we'd be stupid to deny the military has technology as well. Where they got it from, that's a whole other story, right? Was it advanced civilizations and technology from the past that's been hidden from us by these elite, deep staters and things like that? Or was it from crashed UFO wreckage that they recovered and reverse engineered? Or is it all just military technology and the whole UFO thing is a fake out leading us to a fake staged alien invasion in order to take more control? I mean, I'm open to it all. I read everything, and I like knowing that I don't know everything and anything. Can you speak on what your day consists like? What do you do when you wake up? Do you make a list of goals? What routine do you have that works for you? Sure. I wake up every day at 6 a.m. and I go jogging 3 miles. No, I'm just joking. I wake up every day. I don't really have I wake up whenever the heck I feel like it, but generally 8 or 9 in a.m. or if not earlier, and maybe me and Miriam have a day where we want to go to the gym. So we wake up early and we go to the gym and do that for an hour and a half, come back, shower, make a smoothie, and I sit at this desk and I have my to-do list here on this sticky note. And then I've got over here on my wall, I've got kind of longer term goals. And I do, again, want to recommend you guys check out my book, The Holistic Self-Assessment, which is for free on the website, and print it out if you want, or order a physical copy. It's a workbook that you can work through to help get yourself in line with, you know, who you are as a person and what are your goals, and start to align your habits with your actions, right? Because a lot of us have good intentions and good goals, and we want to get to that point where one day, you know, we're living sustainable and off the grid and our food's all organic and yada, yada, yada. But we don't ever actually take steps to get there. So we have to hold ourselves accountable. And then even with Freedom Cells, we could probably have group accountability, right? And encourage each other and push each other. So I go about having my morning. Usually, you know, I check my email in the morning. I check YouTube. I see what's going on. I see if I have any new emails. On Mondays, I have a radio show. On Fridays, I have a radio show. So if I have those, I get ready for that. If I have a list of videos I want to make, I usually make a video first thing in the morning and edit that up and then post that to you guys. If I feel like writing in articles, because that's how I make my money, if I have articles to write, then I get to that. Lately, I've just been spending my days working on the Finders and working on different projects like that. And I do try to break up my day from just sitting at a desk all day and go on a bike ride in the afternoon, or me and Miriam will get out of the house, or I'll go see a friend, or just something, because I spend a lot of time in this chair, and I like to be active as much as I spend time on here. It's a struggle because I like to be out. I like to enjoy the outdoors. I always try to make sure that I put my work aside to go out and get at least a little bit of sunlight. And sometimes I'm better at that than others. Sometimes I'm a workaholic, and it's just, you know, I'm trying to find balance. Yeah, so I work on whatever long-term goals I have. Right now, I knocked off my list of things I've been working on for a while. I knocked off recently, before Mexico, finish the Finders, write your speeches, order shirts. I did all that. Have band practice. That's happening tomorrow. Finish my book. I'm working on that. That's my goal for this last week here until I go to Mexico, is to finish my book. I have the last few chapters to work on it. I want to have that done before I go to Mexico so that I can get it out in March or April. And that's how I work. I have like short-term goals for the immediate things I need to get out that day. Get this video out, work on this article so you can get a little bit of cash today, or go do this project, and then work on the bigger things that take more time. And like I said, sometimes I'm better than others. Also, sometimes I stop and I watch TV shows because I get bored, or I just have to laugh because I'm reading about freaking crazy pedophile networks. So I need to watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia or something just completely retarded that'll make me laugh out loud and realize that there are still some funny, silly things to laugh about. And yeah, and then, you know, like today I had the radio show, went to do the radio, came back here, doing this live show. And then after this, my day of work will officially be over, even though I don't really consider it work because I love to do this. And then I'm going to just chill here. I'm going to maybe watch some TV shows, or work on my speech, or maybe work on a little bit left Finders work I have to do, things like that, you know. So there's always more work to do. There's always more things to do. And like I said, guys, like I don't make any money doing this. Like, I get the Patreon money, and that helps support me, and I'm so thankful and blessed to even do that, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be able to pay Jeremy, the editor, to do these things, and these ideas would just be sitting in my head. I'd have a really good, awesome article, but how many people would read the article compared to how many people are going to watch the videos? You know, I know visual is much more impactful, so I cannot say thank you enough to everybody who supports on Patreon. You know, if you want to sign up for $1 a month, that'd be cool. If, you know, sometimes people send me nice, really cool cards with, you know, thank you letters and just random money, and that's cool, or whatever, or thank yous. And somebody else, I think it was Rika earlier, said that thumbs up are cool too. Shares help. Telling your friends to subscribe, sending my videos to friends, help me grow, because that's what I care about. If I can keep this growing, I will keep this YouTube channel up. I will keep using it as an effective tool to communicate the messages that obviously you guys care about. You know, I know that you don't all agree with me on everything, and that's great, because I don't want a bunch of zombies following my channel like a cult. I want people who can critically think and who can question and can challenge me, and I appreciate that. But obviously you guys care about what I do, and I care about who you are. So please keep this dialogue open. Email me anytime at derek@theconsciousresistance.com. Comment to me. Tell me what's going on with you, what you're dealing with. If you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with suicide, hit me up. Let's talk. I don't know that I'll have all the answers, but I've been there before, and maybe I can just be another ear for you to listen, or to speak to, somebody else to share some ideas. I don't know. I'm just saying, we're in this together. I don't have the best outlook for the global picture, but I do have a very strong, hopeful outlook for the way that we as free, powerful, beautiful people can connect to each other. And that's what I care about. That's what I care about. Growing this channel, connecting to real people, meeting you guys. You know, I'm planning to do a tour again this summer. It's not going to be as big as it was the past 2 years. We did 53 cities this past year. We did 40 something the year before. I'm going to scale it down just to about 20, 23 cities or something like that. And I'll be telling you guys about that as the year goes on. But it's going to be hard for me to promote that and to organize without using social media. So I need your help. I need your help, guys. You can help me reach more people. You can help me communicate these ideas. You can download my books and print them out and put them in places. You know, just let's be creative in sharing this message and getting these ideas out there. I appreciate y'all so much. I don't think I can stress that enough. All right. I saw lots of fractals on DMT. What do you think about the spiritual realm? I think I've kind of answered that. All right. We had a good show today, guys. I think you have very, very important work to do. I feel you are making a huge difference. I appreciate that. I'm happy I found out about you on the Corbett Report last month. And you know what? So many people have found me because of James, and I'm just thankful to James because I've been on his show probably more than anybody. It's funny. I've been on that show about 6 times over the years, and every time I've been on James's show, it's led new people to my work. It's led new people to connect with me, and I'm just so thankful for that. And so he's really helped me boost the Finder's work and boost some other things, and I can't thank him enough. And I'm looking forward to sharing the documentary with him, and I'm looking forward to sharing the documentary with all of you. I'm in the Freedom Cell network, but have not found anyone near me, Amy. Yeah, I know. I'm doing what I can. You know, that's the thing is when I go out there, when I go out there and speak, I tell everybody about the Freedom Cell network. I tell everybody. So just keep checking, guys. Just keep checking because I'm trying to spread this. You know, I'm going to go speak to 2,500 people in Acapulco. I'm going to mention the Freedom Cell Network. I'm going to go speak to, a few thousand people in Envision. I'm going to mention the Freedom Cell Network. And any single talk I have, I'm going to mention the Freedom Cell Network. I'm going to start printing out Freedom Cell flyers, and I'll share those with you if you want to put those around your city. We have to grow it organically because these kinds of ideas aren't going to get a huge budget. We don't have corporations backing us, things like that. So if you want to actually help grow the Freedom Cell movement and grow the community movement, then please do check that out. It's called freedomcells.org for those who have not seen that. Can I bottle my ambition and market it? I sure will. I will sell you my ambition. I will also sell you my energy and my determination. But it's going to cost you. It's a hefty price, and I'm not sure you can pay the cost. All right. So somebody said, what's my band about? I'll end with that. My band is not my band. I'm the newest one in the band, so I don't feel right calling it my band. But I'm playing music with a band called Spectrum, and that's going to be a big focus of mine this year as well. Music, and I know that's totally different. You guys, I don't expect y'all to follow my music channel when I put one out. It's a metal band, progressive metal. I do vocals. I scream. I'm trying to get better at singing. I growl. The lyrics are conscious lyrics, politically aware lyrics, socially aware lyrics, and spiritually aware lyrics. I can't do anything without injecting this message through here. So, that's just what I do. If I make music, if I write articles, it's going to be about the real shit. So that's how I have to roll. But the band's called Spectrum. I just joined in the last month or so. I've been playing music my whole life. My old band, some of you may have heard about Modankari. So that's a fun project. I'm also trying to really, really focus this year on getting this hip hop idea I have off the ground. So if you out there, if anybody makes beats and wants to work with me, hit me up, dude. I'm looking for somebody to collaborate to make these beats. I have so much music. Just, you see the content I put out. I have that amount of music just waiting to come out of me. I have lyrics, I have poems, I have things that I need to create, and I need you guys to help me. So if you know anybody who makes beats or, who focuses on hip hop and can help in that, I want to create truthful, conscious hip hop that can still be real and can not be corny, but things that people can relate to, because for me it's going to be a healing process. I'm going to channel that place in my mind when I was addicted to drugs and when I was coming out of all that, and it's going to be a healing process for me, and I'm excited about it. And it's also going to be very fun and very informative. So yeah, lots of cool things going on. I do have intelligible lyrics in my metal, and I will share the lyrics for you if you want to check them out. freedomcells.org, freedomcells with an S.org. I'll post it there. Yeah. All right, guys. So I'm going to just get through a couple of stories now. I know you guys got plenty of questions, but I just want to mention 2 things, and we're just going to rush through them, and I'm going to just share the links with you guys because I think we're having more fun talking with each other. If you didn't see this, I just saw it today. Congresswoman Anna G. ESHOO of California last week, January 15th, introduced legislation to restore local control in deployment of 5G. Now, you guys may remember this, that I reported on a couple months ago that the FCC passed a rule that basically gave the federal government the control of how local cities and states are going to roll out 5G. And pretty much they said, well, this is in order to remove restrictions and to make it easier for the telecom companies to build us the biggest and best 5G network the world has ever seen. So our internet's so fast that our noses bleed, and that, you know, your autonomous vehicle, it'll arrive before you even thought about it, and all these kinds of fancy things, right? And you can have robot porn and whatever else you're waiting for in this Internet of Things 5G world is coming. But in order to do that, we can't have any of you local governments and city governments and state governments getting in the way. So the FCC and the corporations and the big telecom industry got together to pass this rule. So now these representatives, these congresswomen, are trying to overturn that. They're trying to say, hey, the people need to have the power to say what happens in their communities, because it's not just the price that the feds and the corporations get to control, but it's also going to be where it goes. If they want to put a small cell outside of your window or on your sidewalk, you have no say in that, right? If they want to build it next to a school, they want you to think you have no say. Let me make it clear. You do have a say. You have a voice that you can use and you can exercise if you choose to, but they want you to believe you have no say, and that's what their laws are telling you, that you have no say. So that was fairly new. That was introduced just about a week ago. Is anything going to happen of it? I don't know. We'll find out, but we'll keep an eye on that. And this one here, you guys probably saw this on some other channels from Consortium News, and this has been widely reported elsewhere. A new call to reinvestigate American assassinations, and a group of academics, journalists, lawyers, Hollywood artists, activists, researchers, and intellectuals, including 2 of Robert F. Kennedy's children, are calling for reinvestigations of 4 assassinations of the 1960s. They're calling for new investigations into JFK, Malcolm X, MLK, and Robert F. Kennedy. And it's been signed by all kinds of people. You can check this link out. I'll share these links with you guys in just a second. And I haven't looked yet, but my guess is that this is not anywhere on mainstream news, that they're not telling you, oh, by the way, family members and really influential and powerful and intelligent people are stepping up to the plate and calling for new investigations in this, 50 years later. We'll see if it matters at all, but you probably won't hear about that on your TV. Instead, they want to yell at you about the MAGA kid and the native person, and is this a conflict, and is it racist to wear this hat? Is it racist to smile? Is it just distract you? A coalition is now demanding that Amazon, Microsoft, and Google stop giving facial recognition tech to government agencies. This is from the 10th Amendment Center, who has joined more than 85 other organizations demanding that Microsoft, Google, and Amazon stop providing facial recognition surveillance tech to government agencies. Now, this is the thing, is the big tech. This is why the episode's called Big Tech and Big Brother, because they're collaborating, they're working together, and this has been the plan for a long time. When you start to understand cellular technology, you start to understand the internet infrastructure, and you start to understand GPS technology. These are all technologies that started out in the military and for military uses, and then were eventually given over to the civilian population, where they're now being used to track us. And they gave us these tools in the form of social media, Google, Amazon, and now they know everything about us. And so these companies are now selling facial recognition technology to those same governments, because Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they don't care. They don't care, which is why I try to talk about consistency. Why would we keep using their products? Why are you using Gmail? Hey, why are you using Gmail? Hey, guys, why are you using Gmail? Hey, how come you're using Google Docs? Hey, you. Hey, why are you using Microsoft? Why are you ordering books off Amazon? Don't buy my books off Amazon. Actually, apparently the only place you can get my books is now on Amazon, because Amazon bought the independent publishing company that we were using and swallowed them up whole. And now the only place you can get them is on Amazon. And I'm working on that. But seriously, why are you using Amazon? Why are you using Microsoft? Why are you using Google? Why are you using Facebook? Get off there. And this last one here, I just want to mention, this is an important story that I will be doing a separate full video on. This was just reported yesterday. And it says it's an exclusive from The Guardian, which, you got to take with a grain of salt, but it does seem to be checking out. It says the head of the FDA's opioid advisory team says that officials are manipulating the process to benefit Big Pharma. Opioids advisor accuses agency of having a direct link to the crisis. Now, this is pretty big freaking news, where Dr. Rayford Brown, who works within the FDA himself, is saying that the people in charge of the opioid policy have failed to learn the lessons, and he's accused the agency of putting the interests of narcotics manufacturers ahead of public health, most recently by approving a terrible drug, Dusuvia, who some of you may have heard, in a process that he said was manipulated. They should stop considering any new opioid evaluation. For every day and every week and every month that the FDA don't do the right thing, people drop dead on the streets. What they do has a direct impact on the mortality rate from opioids in this country. And this is because the country is taken over by big tech, big pharma, the banksters, and all these various people that, oh, wouldn't you know it, once you start pulling on one single thread, you start realizing, oh, look, that name's connected to this name. That name's connected to this name. And in the Finders Part 2, you're going to start hearing some of these names, and some of those names might be familiar with you because you pull that thread on who's Marion Petty, who's the guy that started the Finders, and who's he connected to? Oh, he's connected to this, he's connected to this guy, right? So that same power structure exists. Some of them are involved in banks, stealing your money, robbing you blind. Some of them are involved in medicating you, getting you addicted to drugs that they say are legal. Some of them are involved in promoting a culture through Hollywood and elsewhere that is about sexualization and division and just breaking down the connections that communities have. Some of them do it through the Monsanto industry. Some of them are doing it through the big tech. We have all these various cartels that have collaborated and worked together with government, who have revolving door relationships with government, who are screwing us over. And they're literally killing people. Like in many different ways. They're raping, they're killing. I mean, I'm starting to sound like Alex Jones here, right? I'm like going super extreme, but I mean, let's be real about it. These are the things that are happening. Yeah, these are real. This is real shit. Last story of the day, guys, and then we're going to wrap up. And this is just a little bit of positive news, maybe. A Davos poll says that the public trust in national governments has fallen worldwide. A new global survey finds citizens across the globe are increasingly skeptical of their governments over fears of corruption, lack of representation, and insufficient accountability. Meanwhile, public trust in private sector companies appears to be on the rise. Now, this is interesting. It says, according to the yearly Edelman Trust Barometer, only 20% of people who responded across the globe trust the system of national governments in their respective countries. Now, let's break that down. Only 20% of people support their national government. Now, is that a positive thing? Because to me, I see that as a positive thing. If only 20% of the people supported the U.S. criminal government, then it might be a lot easier to make change, right? But is this article or this study trying to say that the answer then is global government, that we just need a bigger government? Oh, okay, well, if people are sick of their national governments, obviously the answer is a national or is a global government. I don't buy that either, right? But if this is representative of people generally pushing back and trusting governments less, then that's a positive thing. And then it says almost 60% of private citizens worldwide believe that nation states, economic, social, and political systems are no longer relevant, saying that conflicts between countries hurt their jobs, well-being, and put livelihoods at risk. And I would think, honestly, things like the internet and blockchain and more emerging technologies are going to make the nation state irrelevant. This is why we have a chance for true decentralized community. They're saying it makes it irrelevant, and it's going to make a global government more relevant, right? They're saying, oh, well, globalization is erasing, these national lines, and we don't need the national governments anymore. We just need one giant global government. But they also talk about how people are just getting sick of government, and obviously we see that in the Yellow Vest movement. But this is just one study, but it does show you that people around the world are getting sick of governments, and that's interesting. But like I said, we have to understand it. Is there more trust for the private sector as opposed to the government? Is it because, as many libertarians know, that in the private sector, despite its faults, generally people have choice, right? With the government, you don't have a choice. They screw you over one way or the other. But if you're going to go give your business to a private person, you have an option. You can say, I'll give you my money, or no thank you, screw you, and that's your choice, right? When it comes to government, it's just their way or that's it. So what do you guys think? I'm going to post all those links to you guys right now, and I'm going to go ahead and I think get out of here for the night. But I want to just say thank you to everybody for hanging out with me today and everything that y'all shared. This has been a really good show. I've had a good time. I will take any last final questions if you guys got them. And other than that, I'm going to start making my way out of here for the night. Please do watch the Finders documentary if you haven't checked it out yet. Share it with a friend. It's not really like fun to sit and watch through necessarily, but it is important information, and I appreciate that. I don't know if you guys caught it. I hope that it kind of had the effect that I was hoping for. But in the documentary, I talk about how I contacted former customs agent Raymond Martinez and how he told me he was willing to speak to me at first, but then ultimately he backed out because he was afraid or because he didn't want to talk, right? And I didn't just talk to him via email and just through the phone. I actually flew across the country to go visit. I found where he's at, and I went to go try to talk to him in person, even though he told me don't talk to him, and he pretty much just told me to ignore, to not bother him. But I figured if I'm going to make a documentary on the finders and I know where this guy's at, then I might as well make an effort to go talk to him in person. And I did that. And I didn't film it, of course, but I tried to talk to him to see if he would go on record. And he told me to fuck off. And he told me to go away. He's very scared. He's not willing to talk. I'm hoping that when the documentary gets more attention, that he will be willing to come out and speak. And I've actually emailed him already and tried to get him to come talk to me and sent him the documentary. And I hope that this will lead to something else, because if he comes forward, we could have a lot more information about the finders, and he might be willing to say everything he knows. So we'll see. But yeah, I saw the question. I will be live next Thursday. I'll go ahead and do that next Thursday. And then, as I said, I'm leaving for Mexico on Friday, so I'll be on the road. I'm going to try to pre-record some videos so I can keep putting out content while I'm on the road. But just in case I disappear for a couple of weeks or so, please keep sharing out the content that you like. And I saw somebody went way back and actually looked at my videos from like 2013, and that's pretty cool, because for those who don't know, I've been doing this live show since 2013, and some of those old videos are kind of embarrassing, but feel free to go dig through them. You know, I have a lot more videos on shamanism in my old stuff, like in my first videos. There's actually a video you can find of me playing drums. There's videos when I used to have dreads. There's a lot of news reports. There's a lot of interviews I've done. So I've done a lot of content over the years. So even if I slow down while I'm on the road, please feel free to look through and read through our archives. And yeah, that's it, guys. I appreciate you so much. Sign up to get our email newsletter. I'll send out the newsletter on Sunday nights. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I'm going to hang out here and relax for the rest of the time. And you guys can argue in the comments if you want. Have a good night. Remember, you are powerful. You are beautiful. You are free. Peace, my friends.